All right, I will say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin. Begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's share. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar, Steve and Teri Czinn, for dedicating all the Sherman Drushos this month in honor of their newest grandson, Matan Shmuel Aharon. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, he will grow to become an incredible Ben Torah. Me ve'esim shanum tovos. To thank our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Michael and Rachel Turniansky, Le'iloi nishmas, Michael's mother, Shaindel bas Mordechai zichron Bracha, and to thank Yehudah Bracha Buchwalter for dedicating the shir today in commemoration of the yahrtzeit of their grandfather, Ya'kov Yehudah ben Asher Za'lig Halevi, who perished on the 28th of Iyar in the Łódź Ghetto. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the nishamas will have an aliyah and the families a nechama. So with that, let us begin. So Baruch Hashem, we have another incredible daf, the beginning of our journey in Maseches Gittin. Today's daf is Gimel, and we are picking up in Meretz Hashem on the bottom of Beis Amud Beis. We left off, actually let's pick up on the last line. For Rabbanan Huda Asrich, we kind of left off right in the middle of everything. So let's just reorient ourselves a little bit. The Mishnah introduced us to an incredible idea, namely, that when a person brings a get from Medinas Hayam, from overseas, when delivering the get, they are obligated to make the statement, B'fanai nechtav or B'fanai nechtam. This get was written in front of me and it was signed in front of me. Machlokes Rabbah and Rava, as what is the nature of this obligation. Rabbah, Mishum de'in b'kiyim l'shma. We're concerned that in Chutz La'aretz they don't know that a get has to be written for the sake of this man, for the sake of this woman. So we're concerned that in Chutz La'aretz they're just writing up Gittin without any specific intent for people. And therefore, again, the Shaliach comes, he says, B'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. Now we'll say, now what happens after that? We ask him. That's a conversation starter. Right? Afterwards, we ask him, tell us, was the get written l'shma? And then, of course, the hope is that he's going to answer yes. According to Rabbah, ein shayaros mitzuyin, or ein edim mitzuyin. So Rabbah's concern is that when the shliach brings the get from overseas, let's say someone comes to go ahead and raise an objection against the get. And when we say someone, often that someone, of course, is the husband. Right? What's the concern? Now, that's not a problem. In general, people have the ability to challenge the authenticity of a document. So how do you go ahead and hold up the validity of a document in the face of a challenge? Kiyam shtaros, you validate signatures, either getting the witnesses themselves to identify their own signatures or getting others who recognize the signatures of the witnesses. The problem is, if the get is written overseas, the ability to validate those signatures once you're in Eretz Yisrael is going to be difficult. So essentially, according to Rava, what we do is we have the shaliach say, B'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam, and that effectively goes ahead and validates the signatures. Now I will say, based on that, so the Gemara was asking, just very quickly, according to Rabbah, why don't you need two witnesses? In other words, if this is a din in the Shema, it's a davar sheba erva. Ein davar sheba erva pachos mishnayim. Actually, we're doing the whole daf again yesterday. It's incredible, right? Ein davar sheba erva pachos mishnayim. And therefore, I'm sorry. Pleasure. Now you can start, right? So ein davar sheba erva pachos mishnayim. So halacha l'maisi, you should have to go ahead and require two witnesses. So I'll say. So remember again what we ended off yesterday with. The Gemara effectively does a 180, and the 180 is that according to Rabbah, we're not really concerned. Right? Rov b'kiyam v'shema. Most people know exactly what is supposed to be done. It's not really, they do it l'shema. I suppose say, so what's the issue? Even Rabbi Meir, who's chayish mi'uta, who is concerned ultimately for the minority, believes that even here we're okay. Why? Because stam sifri migmar gemiri. Sofrim know what they're doing. So we'll say, therefore, why do you b'fanei nechtam? Ultimately, Rabbanon. It's the Rabbanon ultimately, again, who required this. Now I will say, okay, so the Rabbanon required it, and I will say, here, so let's pick up Rabbanon Huda Asrich. It's the Rabbanon ultimately who require you to say Nechtav. So why not two witnesses? So why don't you need two people to bring the get? Why only one? V'hacha, top of Gimel, Mishum Iguna Akilu Bar Rabbanon. Because of Aguna issues, Chazal were mekel. And I will say, this is going to go ahead and be a common refrain that we are going to find throughout Maseches Gittin, that there are certain areas in halacha where Chazal relaxed their requirements when it comes to a get, in order to avoid aguna issues. We'll say an aguna is a woman who is stuck without a get, and therefore, again, unable to go ahead and remarry. Chazal, contrary to sometimes what people think, again, we'll get into this a little bit more, but Chazal were concerned about a woman being left without a get. And Chazal were concerned about this dynamic of quote-unquote chained women who are unable to move forward with their lives because of circumstances surrounding the get. And therefore, whenever Chazal could go ahead and do something to alleviate that concern, they did so. See, even though, again, so therefore, and how did the Chazal address this over here? By only requiring one aid or one shaliach and not two. Okay, we'll take a quick look, by the way, before we move on, just the last Rashi on Beis and the days. Rashi says, "V'rabbanon da'atzrichu lemechash lemilsa mishum deika da'ashkach kasu va'omed kigon shenechtav l'shem echem de'iro sheshmo kishmo u'shma kishma v'nimlach milagarish." So we'll say, what the Gemara is saying is like this. According to Rabba is not really concerned with lishma, right? He believes that even in chutz la'aretz they're going to write the get correctly. But he is concerned for a minority of cases where the get is not going to be written lishma. So because of the minority of cases, they instituted that you have to say b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam. But in order not to create undue hardship upon the woman, all you need is one person to say it and not two. Good. We'll say if we have time at the end of this year, I'm going to come back to Rabbi Mordechai Shlemiuta, but let's first cover a little bit of ground. So we'll say top of Gimel. To which the Gemara said, 1 second, this is incredible. Hi kulahu. So we'll say, so now essentially what you're telling me is Chazal were mekel, and therefore they only required one. I would say I'm using the word witness, but remember again, the guy in this case is not the witness, right? What is he? He's a shaliach. But effectively, he becomes a witness, because when he says b'fanei nechtav u b'fanei nechtam, according to Rabbah, what he's really testifying on is the validity of specifically of the lishma component of the get. To which the Gemara says, this is incredible. Hai kulu chumruhu. This is not a kula, right? Only requiring one witness / shaliach. This is not a kula. This turns out to be a chumrah. Why? I say, watch this. Because if from the outset you would require two witnesses, in other words, two people to bring the get, and those two people are saying and remember, according to Rabbah, essentially then what are they doing? They are attesting to the validity of the lishma of the get. The Rabbah say what? Lo asi bal ma'arer. The husband would no longer have any ability to go ahead and cast aspersions upon the validity of the get. Why wouldn't he have the ability to do so? Why not? Because you have two witnesses attesting to the validity of the get. But if it's only one witness, ultimately what? The husband can come along and go ahead and cast aspersions on the validity of the get, because then it'll be one against one. And if it's one against one, we kind of have to take that into account to a certain degree. Let's say it's such an incredible Musar Haskell, which is you know what essentially the Gemara is saying? Is Chazal is saying you only have to have one witness come along and say or one witness bring the get. Why? It's a kula. The Gemara says sometimes what looks like a kula turns out to be a chumrah, which the incredible yisur, which we all know in life because we've all experienced it multiple times, maybe even already today, even though it's only 6:05 in the morning. Sometimes in life when you try to take shortcuts and you think you're saving yourself time and you think that you're saving yourself effort, at the end of the day, you open up a whole host of other issues. And had I only expended the requisite amount of effort in the beginning, I would have saved myself from so much more additional patchwork later on. So the Gemara says, it's very nice, you just want to have one witness. I got it, that's a kula, only one witness. Just understand, this is still an open matter then. Because that means the husband could come along, go ahead and say, I never authorized this, it's forged, whatever it is. Meanwhile, if you just mandated two witnesses from the beginning, once those witnesses come along and say, we'll say, then what? We're done here. Once you have two witnesses testifying or attesting to the authenticity of the get, there is no longer any room for the husband to go ahead and cast doubt upon the validity of the get. To which the Gemara says, Kevin Damar Mar, both is incredible. But I just want to point out what's exciting about this Gemara is the Gemara is throwing out like a lot of stuff, a lot of concepts that we are going to cover over the course of the Masechta. We're just seeing it all here, or a lot of it on the front end. So watch this. Kevan Daramar, the Gemara says it's not a problem. I'll tell you what. Kevan Daramar, Bifnei Kama Nosnala. So we made reference to this already. The Shaliach is not just handing the get to the wife. He's giving it to her in front of some group. So Bifnei Kama Nosnala, in front of how many people is the husband giving? Is the Shaliach giving the get to the wife? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina. So it's machlokes Chad Amar Bifnei Beis. One said in front of two people. The Chad Amar Bifnei Gimel. One said three. And we'll get into that machlokes later on. But here's the point. When that Shaliach shows up from Medinas Hayam and he delivers that get, he's not just stam handing it to her. This is a process. He's handing it to her in front of either two people or three people. And we'll say, what does that matter? This is incredible. Meikara meidak dayik. I will say, the Shaliach himself has to be concerned about his own personal halachic integrity and, we'll call it integrity and believability, right? His own reputation. If that Shaliach comes along and he says, and I will say, then imagine what happens. A couple of days later, the husband shows up and he says, Lo hayid dvar me'olam. I never authorized this get. It's forged. It's this. We'll say, what does that do to the integrity of the Shaliach? What does that do? Down the drain. We'll say, essentially what the Gemara is saying is like this. The Shaliach knows that he has to give this over in front of a group. And he knows that he wants to also maintain his integrity going forward. He is going to be especially careful to never deliver a get unless he knows 1,000,000%. The husband is on board. The get was written properly. So both say, so that's what it means. So Gemara says, look at Rashi. Meikar meidak dayik hashaliach kishemakavlo miyadamal ve'odeabo sheberatzon megarsham v'lo yavu ya'ar od. So both say, so ultimately again, a shaliach is not going to deliver this get unless, of course, he knows with absolute certainty that the husband is on board with this get. Incredible. So we'll say, so therefore this closes out Rabbah, at least for this moment. So according to Rabbah, it turns out, originally he said, why does the Shaliach say, Lefi she'im b'kiyim l'shma? It turns out, what does it turn out? B'kiyim l'shma. Rov b'kiyim l'shma. Most people know what they're doing. Certainly Sofrim know what they're doing. Chazal came along and said, you know what? We're concerned a little bit that in Chutzar they're not as proficient with l'shma. Therefore, say b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. Why not require two? Why not require two witnesses? Chazal were mekel because of aguna. It's a kula that's going to result in a chumrah, because if it was two, the matter would be closed. Now that it's only one, the husband could come and object. No, since the Shaliach knows that he has to deliver this get in front of a group of people, either two or either three, he is going to take the necessary steps to ensure that this get is beyond reproach. Beautiful. According to Rabbi, who says that the reason you have to say b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam is why, essentially, it's kiyum shtaros. Essentially, what you're doing, what we're concerned about is, should the husband come along and cast doubt upon the get at a later date, it's going to be hard to validate the get through the signatures, since the witnesses are overseas. So, therefore, again, the Shaliach says, thereby validating the document. Aili boitre, so same question. You should need two. You should need two witnesses. Why? Miti dahava kiyum shtaros ta'alma. Because Rabbi say, halacha l'maisa, essentially, according to Rabbi say, this is kiyum shtaros. This is, Rabbi say, remember again, the process of kiyum shtaros, we've never explicitly spoken about this, but we've certainly alluded to it enough times. Kiyum shtaros is the process through which you validate a document. How do you validate a document? Generally, right? Either again, you're going ahead and testifying about the signatures, or getting the witnesses to testify about the validity of the signatures. So essentially, according to Rabbah, so we are doing kiyum shtaros, right? So we'll call it Shaliach brings the get from Medinas Hayam. He says b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. He is validating the signatures. That's it. Gemara says, but 1 second. Validation of signatures, like kiyum shtaros, normally requires how many people? Two. It's two. So the Gemara says, Eidachanam b'isurin. So which the Gemara says, no, it's okay, this case is different. Why? Because one witness is believed when it comes to matters of Isser. Okay. So the Gemara says, one second. Eimar da'amrinan eidachanam, same conversation from yesterday. Eimar da'amra eidachanam b'isurin. When do we say that an eid echad is believed when it comes to matters of Isser? Kigon chaticha safek shal chelev safek shal shuman lo ischazik isura. Was exactly what we had yesterday. I always thought, when do we say eid echanem and bisurin? It was in a case of what we call delo ischazik isura. Delo ischazik isura means what? The identity of the isur has not been confirmed or validated, or meaning a suffix case. A suffix case. That's when we say eid echanem. Right, you have a piece of meat. We said this, you have a piece of meat. You're not sure. Is the meat mutter? Is the meat asur? Eid echad comes along and says, it's mutter. So what's going to be the halacha? You believe him. He has credibility to go ahead and make that statement. However, aval hacha is chazik yisura de eshes ish. We will say in this case over here, it says chazik yisura. Right? Why is it chazik yisura? Because what's the message again? We know she's a married woman. If that's the case, how is davar sheva erva? Ve'im davar sheva erva pachos mi beis. But say same question we asked on Rabbah yesterday. Same question. This is not a matter of Isser. This is a Davar Sheva Erva. This is right. This is. Remember again, Davar Sheva Erva. What do we have? Our favorite Gzera Shava. What's our favorite Gzera Shava? I'm telling you, favorite Gzera Shava is Davar Mi Mamon. Right? Kimatza ba Ervas Davar. Says Davar by Erva. Says Davar by Mamon. Just like Mamon, just like monetary matters require 2 witnesses, so too Erva requires 2 witnesses. So therefore, again, Kiyam Shtaros should require 2 witnesses. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Bedinhu, Dibikiyum Shtaros Nami Lo Libai. So I will say, in reality, you don't even really need Kiyum Shtaros over here. I will say, why don't you need Kiyum Shtaros? This is incredible. Kid Reish Lakish, Dam Reish Lakish, because Reish Lakish says, Eidim HaChasumin Ala Shtar Nasu Kimi Shenechkeru Eduson Bebezdin. So I will say, this is very profound. When you have witnesses who sign on a document, witnesses sign a document, it is as if their signatures have been examined in Beis Din. I will say, what this means is as follows. So I will say, when it comes to shtaros, when we look at a shtar, so I will say, what do we see? The halach essentially says is, we see an absolutely valid instrument until proven otherwise. I will say, it's not the pshat that we see a shtar and we assume it's forged until it's validated. No, when you see a shtar, so again, you make the assumption, it's got a shtar, it's got text, it's got witnesses on it. This is a valid instrument. Right? Unless, of course, you could somehow halachically prove otherwise. So we'll say, so now watch this. So Reish Lakish says, in general, when you see witnesses signed on a document, it's as if their signatures ultimately, again, have been processed by Beis Din. So we'll say, if that's the case, then according to Rava, should a shaliach need to say b'fanei nechtam, should he need to do anything? No, why not? Because as soon as he produces that get with 2 signatures on it, what should be the halacha? We're done. So what's going on over here? For Rabbanon Huda Asruch. The rabbis were concerned about, say, since a get is such an important vehicle, right? And if you think about it, there's so much writing on it, right? Because remember, you're going to say, if you're wrong about a get, then what? A woman gets remarried, she has children, and what do we have? Mamzerim. Right? So I will say, and Mamzerus, from a genealogical perspective, we've seen enough, even back in our Yavamas days, to know Mamzerus is so serious because it effectively cannot be corrected. Now, that's not a totally true statement. There are ways, ultimately, to correct Mamzerus, but again, it's difficult. It's a genealogical blemish that by definition is passed down throughout the generations. So therefore, because a get is so significant, Chazal came along and said, you know what? Say b'fanei nechtam. So I'll say, so here's what's incredible. So now, according to Rava, who we said in this entire time, b'fanei nechtam is to validate the document. It turns out a document doesn't need to be validated because a document in its default state is considered to be valid. The Rabbanon are the ones who said, you know what? By get, just add in this extra measure of b'fanei nechtam u'b'fanei nechtam. That way, it's beyond reproach. The Gemara says, and even though in general, so we'll say, so essentially, we'll say, what are Chazal really mandating? What they're mandating is a proactive kiyum shtaros. That's what they're doing. Proactive kiyum shtaros. Right? Just this way again, there's no problems. The Gemara says, but one second. If that's the case, right, you should really require 2 witnesses, because that's what you need for kiyum shtaros. To which the Gemara says, once again, V'hacha mishum iguna akilu barabanon. You're right, you should require 2, but Chazal said you only need 1 in order to be mekel to avoid any type of aguna situation. In other words, we want to make the process as easy as possible so as to allow her to remarry without incident. How do they make it easier? Just say you only need 1 witness and not 2. To which the Gemara says again, Haikulahu, you think this is a kula? Chumrahu. This is going to turn into a stringency. I'll tell you why. Because had you required 2 witnesses effectively for the proactive kiyum shtaros according to Rava, so lo asiba ma'aro pasile, the husband would have no ability to come and to cast doubt upon the get. Chad, but if it's only 1 witness, asibal ma'aro pasile. Ultimately, again, the husband can come along and what? Cast aspersions on the get and potentially negate. I will say so. Sim kasha the Gemara is saying is by cutting a corner, by quote unquote making things easier on the front end, you're opening yourself up. You're opening yourself up to the invalidation of the get later on. To which the Gemara says once again, no. Kevan da amar mar mipnei kama nosnala. Since Rabbi say the shaliach is not just handing the get to the woman, but he has to hand it over in front of a group. How many? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina, Chad Amar B'fnei Shnayim, V'chad Amar B'fnei Gimel, Meikara Meidek Daik V'lo Asila Ruei Nafshei. So I'll say, so same answer as we saw before. Essentially, since halacha l'maisa, ultimately the shaliach is going to have to give it over to a group, and the shaliach does not want his own integrity, right, ne'emanos compromised. He's going to make sure that before he gives her the get, he has all of his I's dotted, all of his T's crossed, and therefore the husband is not going to come to go ahead and cast aspersions on the get. I will say, so that is the end. That is the end of this discussion. So I will say, it turns out, it's actually one of these nice schemas where it turns out that actually everything is fine. Right? And I will say, you know how like sometimes you get into a whole, everything is fine. Right? Everything is fine. Shaliach comes and gives a get to the woman. Essentially, I will say, when we see the shaliach give the get to the woman, what do we assume? What's our working assumption? It's a valid document. It's good. Rabba is concerned for maybe the possibility, the remote possibility, that the get wasn't written lishma. So therefore, again, he has b'far nechtam. You should require 2 witnesses. Mishum iguna akilu barabana. Chazal wanted to relax the standards so as to allow her to get remarried. According to Rava, what are we concerned about over here? We're concerned about in edim mitzuyim l'kaimo. Essentially, Rava is going to mandate a proactive kiyum shtaros. Then why not require 2? Again, mishum iguna akilu barabana. We want to take it easy, right? Because in order to make it easy, so that she should be able to get remarried. Beautiful. That's it. I will say that's the whole thing. To which the Gemara says, okay, now let's get a little more involved. For Rava, my time alone Rabba. So we'll say Rava, who holds that b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam, is there to address what? Is there to go ahead and address ein edim mitzuyin l'kaimo kiyum shtaros. Why doesn't he hold of Rabba? Right? Why doesn't he agree that it's a problem of lishma? So we'll say, watch this. Amar lecha mikatani b'fanei nechtav lishma b'fanei nechtam lishma. So we'll say, so Rava says like this, it's incredible. Rava says, Rabba, if you are right that it's a lishma issue, if that's the real concern, then the aid / shaliach should have to say, Befanai nechtav lishma, befanai nechtam lishma. Right? Just say it. Why on earth? Why you only say befanai nechtam? What says incredible. For Rabba, so what will Rabba say to that? Bedinhu, the listener, you're right. Rabbi says, you're saying good, right? You're right. He should say, so what's the issue? Listen to this. What is incredible. Sometimes if you ask a person to say too much, what ends up happening? They end up shortening their words. Just the nature of people, right? So I suppose you see this, by the way, right? You see this like in the way people text, right? Today, especially those young people, right? Those young people when they text, right? Right? So I'll say, right? I love you is lowercase I-L-U-V-U, or great is G-R-8. Really G-R-8, the number 8? Just write the E-A-T. What's the big deal? It's 2 more characters. But I'll say, in any event, L'maisa, human nature is give people something to say, and often they'll go out and be makatzerit. Now I will say, so what is Rabbah concerned about? Rabbah's concern is if you mandate b'fanei nechtav lishma, b'fanei nechtam lishma, they're going to go ahead and lop off the lishma. Now I will say, now what's the problem? The problem is then that's going to be a deficient statement. If it's a deficient statement, it's going to trigger a whole other bunch of problems. Therefore what? Therefore, halacha l'maisa, shrink it in order to be ensured that l'maisa they're going to go ahead and say the whole thing. So I understand. Even b'farnechtam, why aren't you concerned that the shliach is going to lop off something from there? Chada mitlas goy. So this is very interesting. So apparently, leaving off one thing from 3 words is a legitimate concern. Chada mitarti lo goys. One word from a 2-word phrase, we're not concerned. In other words, we'll say we look at b'farnei nechtav or b'farnei nechtam as 2 phrases. So apparently, Rabba felt that people will leave off one word from a 3-word statement, but people don't leave off one word from a 2-word statement, which makes sense. So we'll say, right? Because if you lop off 3 words from a 2-word statement, you still have what? A statement, right? If you lop off 1 word from a 2-word statement, then you no longer have a statement. What do you have? A word, right? A word. Stefa Rabba says, halacha l'maisa. That's why Rabba says, you're right. We should really require b'farnei nechtav l'shma, b'farnei nechtam l'shma. But I'm concerned that if we that day that people are going to leave something off, and then again, when left with a deficient statement, halacha l'maisa, you could really cause problems. Therefore, we shorten the statement to just b'farnei nechtam. I'll say there's an incredible Musar Haskell in this as well, which is, say, when you delegate something to someone, one of the things that a person has to be conscious of is it's most probably not going to get done the way you want it to get done, right? And the way you would have done it yourself. And in the way that you think things should get done, right? They will say, in other words, that like, what's happening over here? The husband is going ahead and husband should be giving the get to his wife. What is he doing? So what is he doing? He's outsourcing. Now, why? Because the job still has to get done. The husband, for whatever the reason, can't do it. So nice, he's outsourcing. And what essentially is Rabbi saying? Well, what is Rabbi saying, I should say? Right? So Rabbi is saying, or I should say Rabbi is really saying, that halacha l'maisa, when you ask someone to do something, they're not going to do it like you would have done it. And they're probably not even going to put in the same amount of effort as you would have done had you done it. So we'll say, and therefore what? So we'll say, so again, it's a good lesson because one person can't do everything. So by definition, you're going to have to outsource to other people. But like most things in life, manage your expectations. We'll say it's the same way, by the way. You ever get an Amazon package delivered to your house when it's about to rain, right? And it's an incredible thing because what happens? You could just put it inside the door, right? I don't know, like if you have like a little bit of like a storm door, right? Or under the awning instead of on the step. And I don't know, maybe it's just my Amazon guy, right? And sometimes I feel like in my house, according to the volume of things that are ordered, we probably have our own Amazon person, right? But myself, I feel like Jeff Bezos owes me like a holiday card, like something, right? So the Maisa, it's just always so interesting. You're bringing the package already. You're bringing it. It's two more steps to inside the storm door. And yet, it's just left right there. So like, you get angry, you get upset, and then you realize, you know what? He doesn't care about my package. His job, what's his job? His job is to deliver the thing. He delivered it. And how is he delivering it? With the bare minimum effort to go ahead and check that box. That's what he's doing. He's obligated to get that on my property within some amount of space to my front door. I don't know, there must be like a Hilchos Amazon with this, right? About like how close, right? Like it's like loved. It's like loved, right? As long as it's loved to the storm door, then it's enough. I will say, it's such an incredible yesod. And I will say, on the flip side, sometimes, this is important, if you're the one asking for the favor or you're the one outsourcing, manage your expectations correctly. That's number one. Number two, I will say, if you're the one who's asked to do something, I will say, we do this also. Someone asks me to do something, I do it almost well. Whatever, I'm doing a million other things, I'm doing that additional thing you asked me to do. I was saying, sometimes when I realize that when we do things for other people, we give 85%. 85%. Right? And again, I would say something for us to be conscious of, because if somebody asks me to do something, they're relying on me for something. And Lamaisa, the goal in life is to treat someone else's task as if it were my own. But yet, human nature is not like that. And that's what Rabbi is saying over here. Right? So the Gemara says, if you give a person a long statement, they're going to say a short statement. Give a person a task to do, chances are they're never going to do it the way you would have done it yourself, and they're probably going to cut corners in some way. It's important for us to be conscious of that when we delegate to others, and important for us to be conscious that when others delegate to us. So Rabbi, my time so why doesn't Rabbi hold like Rabbi? Why doesn't Rabbi hold that it's the Shema? Why doesn't he hold like Rabbi that it's Eidim Mitzuyin L'Kaimo? To which the Gemara says, Im kein nisni befanei nechtam v'sulo befanei nechtav lamali. Wow, listen to this. So Rabbi says, Rabbi, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. Because if you are correct that it's just about Kiyum Shtaros validating the document, Rabbi said the only thing you need for document validation is what? Valid signatures. Valid signatures. If that's the case, Rava, if you were correct, really all the witness / shaliach has to say is what? Befanei nechtam. That's all. You don't need befanei nechtav. We don't care about what his runner is. Just say befanei nechtam. This document was signed in front of me, and halacha l'maisa again, I can attest to the validity of the signatures. Shema mina ba'inu l'shma. So we'll say, what do you see from the fact that ultimately again he has to say befanei nechtav, that the get was written in front of him. He tells us that what? That halacha l'maisa, the get has to be written l'shma. Has to be written l'shma, and therefore again this fuels Rabba's position that this whole thing is a din l'shma. But Rava, so what would Rava answer to that? But Rava, bedinu d'lisn haki. You're right. In reality, all the shaliach really needs to say is befanei nechtam. That's enough to validate the document. So I'll say, what are we concerned about? What we're concerned about is that halacha l'maisa, if he just goes ahead and says befanei nechtam, then Rabbi will say what? Then it's clear that what is this a case of? Kiyum Shtaros, validating documents. Now Rabbi will say, what are we concerned about? That people are going to think that in the same way that by Gittin, Kiyum Shtaros works with an Eid Echad, so to what? All other cases of Kiyum Shtaros work with an Eid Echad. And I will say that is false. The only reason why Kiyum Shtaros works with an Eid Echad according to Rava is why? Mishum iguna akilu barabanan. Because Chazal wanted to be makel over here to validate the get as quickly and as easily as possible. But in every other case of Kiyum Shtaros, what do you need? Two witnesses. So according to Rava, how do we avoid confusion? By adding in befanei nechtav. That way again, the way Eid is saying befanei nechtav, befanei nechtam, and therefore again, even though it is a case of Kiyum Shtaros, they won't confuse this case of Kiyum Shtaros with other cases of Kiyum Shtaros. Incredible. Rabbi will say, come on, there's no confusion over here. I'll tell you why. Gittin is so dramatically different than every other case of Shtaros. Why? V'Rabba mi dami. How can you compare this case of Kiyum Shtaros to other cases? Hasam yadinan, hacha b'fanai. First of all, the verbiage, the wording is different. So I will say, in general, when it comes to Kiyum Shtaros, ultimately, again, the way you go ahead and say it is you say yadinan. We know that this is the signatures of the witnesses. That's the verbiage that's used. Here is a totally different phrase. Befanai nechtam. It's just different. So that's number one, why it's different. Number two, hasa mishlo mehemna, haki ish mehemna. We'll going to see, in a regular case of Kiyum Shtaros, a woman is not believed because it's testimony. Right? The woman can't give testimony about the validity of the signatures. By Gittin, I will say, we are going to see that a woman ultimately, again, is believed to say befanei nechtav or befanei nechtam. Ultimately, she is believed for this agency. Next, hasam bal davar lo mehemen, hacha bal davar mehemen. But say by regular Kiyum Shtaros, ultimately, again, the person who is, so to speak, the party named in the document, is not believed to validate the document. Here, by Gittin, right, the bal davar, even the husband himself or the woman herself, ultimately, again, is believed. So we'll say what Rabbi is saying is, I don't understand why you're concerned about confusing this case with the regular case of Kiyum Shtaros. There are so many other distinguishing halachos by Gittin that just put it in a different category. To which the Gemara says, Rava would say to you, Atu hacha ki amri yadinan mila mehemni. Rava would say, tell me, let me ask you. Let's say, a shaliach shows up carrying a get from Medina Sayam, and he says, yadinan, I know that the signatures of the witnesses on this document are valid. I will say, would we uphold such a case like that, says Rava? Yes. Since by definition, b'di'evad, if he used the same lashon by get as is normally used by kiyum shtaros, it would be valid. So we'll say, because b'di'evad it would be valid, therefore Rava is concerned about confusing kiyum shtaros by gittin with regular kiyum shtaros. So therefore we'll say, he, as in the phrase, he feels the phrase, b'fanei nechtav, this get was written in front of me, even though that phrase doesn't actually play a role in the halachic process that's unfolding. But why is it there? To distinguish between the process by gittin and every other kiyum shtaros. And most notably, that although kiyum shtaros by gittin could occur with an eid echad, that cannot occur by other forms of kiyum shtaros. Incredible. Fine. Ulurabba was a second to last line. Gimel Madalef. Ulurabba. The Amar Lefishem V'Kiyam L'Shma. So I was like going back now. According to Rabba, who says that B'Fanei Nechta B'Fanei Nechtam is all there to attest to the L'Shma of the get. Man Hai Tana Debai Ksiv L'Shma. Now Rabba saying, here's what's interesting. We're going to see this machlokas later on. So Rabba is saying you have to say B'Fanei Nechtav or B'Fanei Nechtam. Why? In order to attest to the L'Shma nature of the get. Now Rabba say, by saying what are you saying? What is the shliach saying? The get was written l'shma and signed l'shma. That's what it sounds like. So the Gemara says, who is the opinion who says that the get itself, we're going to see that a get has two parts to it. Actually, it has really three parts to it. There is the pro forma part, right, of the get. There is the individual part of the get, the name of the man, name of the woman, name of the location, and then there's the signatures of the witnesses. So I will say, the fact that the shliach has to say b'fanai nechtav indicates to us that the body of the get has to be written l'shma. So I will say, whose opinion is that? So mantan debai ksiv l'shma, ubay amadeis, ubay chasim l'shma. We'll say, who is the opinion who says that you need both the writing of the body of the get as well as the signatures to be l'shma? Who is it? Who is it? Rabbi Meir, if it's Rabbi Meir, so Chasima boy, Ksiva lo boy. We'll say Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that only the signatures have to be done l'shma, but the writing does not have to be l'shma. We'll say, I just want to point out what that means according to Rabbi Meir. Actually, let's take a look. This not in kosin b'mechubar lekarka. But like I said, we're seeing a lot of halachas now. You cannot write a get on something attached to the ground. We'll say, so for example, right, if a husband, right, Reuben's married to Rachel, and Reuben decides to engrave the get on a tree, and then he's going to gift Rachel the tree. It's very sentimental, right? He's going to gift Rachel the tree. You know, maybe like when they got married, they carved their initials on the other side of the tree. Right? So there's a chabarain over here, right? The get on the first side of the tree. Right? So what happens? So we'll say, so you can't write a get on something that is mechubar lekarka. Now we're going to discuss why that is. Can't write against something attached to the ground. Now, conversely, kasav mechubar lekarka utelasho. So what happens if he wrote the get on something attached to the ground, and then what? Then before it was signed, detached it, then signed it, binasnula kasher. Ultimately, it's kasher. So we'll say this is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. So we'll say Rabbi Meir. What do you see from here? That according to Rabbi Meir, the only part of the process that has to be done, the shema, is the chasima, is the signing. We'll say take a look at Rashi chasima. Rashi says over chasima the shema by the ikasav law achasima kasav keditani lekaman kasav get. So we're going to see this later on. Such Rabbi Meir holds that when it says the kasav law, the kasav in the Torah, the kasav law sefer krisos, the kasav law is ultimately the source for the concept of lishma, So we'll say, so when the Torah says the kasav law, Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that is going on the signatures. So we'll say, I just want to point out what that means. So this is a case of mechubar. But in addition to mechubar, I'll give you even a better case. Reuven's married to Rachel. Right? Now again, Reuven wants to divorce Rachel. Reuven's walking by, he passes a garbage dump. And in the garbage dump, he happens to see a get that was written from Reuven to Rachel that is unsigned. According to Rabbi Meir, Reuven could take that get, right, and use it. But it was written for someone else, it's okay. The only part of the get that has to be the shema are the signatures on the get. The actual body of the get could be pro forma. So we'll say, so again, our Mishnah can't be Rabbi Meir, because all Rabbi Meir holds you need is signing of the signatures, the shema. The writing of the actual body of the get doesn't have the shema, but yet our Mishnah mandates what? B'fanei nechtav ubefanei nechtam. So who is it? Rabbi Elazar. So Rabbi Elazar. So ksiva bai, chasima lo bai. So we'll say Rabbi Elazar is going to be of the opinion that halacha l'maisa, only the actual writing of the get has to be l'shma. The signatures do not. Rabbi will say, if you take a look at Rashi, Rashi's right across. The Rabbi Elazar, da'aram b'da'oraisa get she'ein edav chasumin alav kasher. So we're going to see that actually what Rabbi Elazar holds is you don't really even need witnesses on a get. You don't need witnesses on a get. As long as halacha l'maisa, the get is the body of the get is written l'shma, the kas of law is written l'shma, that is going to be enough. So Rabbi say, so we're stuck. We can't find the author of our Mishnah. Because according to Rabbah, the author of our Mishnah who mandates befanei nechtav ubefanei nechtam is going to require both ksiva and chasima l'shma. So who is our Mishnah? So the chitim of the Olam Rabbi Elazar, maybe it's Rabbi Elazar, we just Rabbi Elazar only requires ksiva l'shma, doesn't require chasima l'shma. So the chilo by Rabbi Elazar chasima l'shma midaraisa. Maybe what we'll say is like this: when doesn't Rabbi Elazar require chasima l'shma? Signature to the witness is l'shma midaraisa, but midrabanan boy. But we will say that maybe midrabanan he will require it. Or maybe that's the svara, and therefore again the Mishnah reflects this view that halacha l'maisa b'fanei nechtav is necessary midaraisa, that it has ksivas to do the shema, and b'fanei nechtam is necessary midrabanan. Maybe that's the halacha. To which the Gemara says no. V'hash loshe gittin psulim drabanan v'lo bay Rabbi Elazar. So we'll say, now listen to this. There were three gittin. Ultimately, again, there are pasal lishma. I was saying, now watch this. What are the three gittin? First, I'll take a look at Rashi. Actually, before we go on, so let's look at the Gemara first. The Gemara says, "Disnan." Here we go. Disnan. Gimel gem psulim ve'emnises havlad kosher. Ultimately, again, there are three gittin psulim. There are three gittin that are pasal. But if she married with these gittin and had children, ultimately the offspring is kosher. The offspring is kosher. Now, I will say, what are the cases? Now, I will say, now, what does that mean when we say that ultimately, again, three gittin that are pasal l'shma, if she marries with them, the offspring is kosher? What does that mean? What that means is that halacha l'maisa, the gittin are pasal midrabanan, but ultimately kosher mid'oraisa. What are the cases? So the Gemara says, ksav b'ksav yada ve'in alav edim. Ultimately, again, if the get is written in the husband's handwriting, and there are no signatures of witnesses on it, again, also we're going to see each of these cases independently. Next, yesh alav edim ve'in bozman. There are signatures of witnesses, but there's no date. So we're going to talk about date and the role that a date plays in a get, which is of crucial importance. We'll discuss. Yesh bozman ve'in alav eid echad. It has a date, but there's only one witness signed on it. Hari elu shlosha gittin psulin. All of these are invalid gittin. V'mises havlad kasher. But if she ends up marrying with one of these gittin, ultimately again the offspring will remain kasher. Rabbi Elazar Omer afapi she'in alav edim ela shnasna b'fnei edim kasher v'gov menechasim mishubadim. Rabbi Elazar holds that halacha l'maisa what? If you have a regular get, even if there are no signatures on that get, no edim, but it was given in front of witnesses, the get is 100% kosher. Not only that, the government nechasim mishubadim halacha l'maisa, she could go ahead and collect from encumbered properties. Well, so we're going to talk about all of this. Obviously, a get, remember again, gives a woman the license to collect her ksuba. So we're going to talk about again what type of properties you could collect with once you have a get, nechasim b'nei unencumbered properties, encumbered properties. We're not going to get into it now. She'ina edim chosim ala get ela mipnei tikkun ha'olam. Ultimately, again, because edim only sign on a get, because of tikkun, for the benefit of society. What that benefit of society is, we don't know, but we'll see. But I will say, but bottom line, what do you see from here? That Rabbi Elazar doesn't even require signatures of the witnesses on the get midrabanan. Right? Just the point. He doesn't even, right? Forget about Doraisa. Even with Rabbanan, he doesn't require it. He says at most you're going to require it mipnei tikkun ha'olam. But l'maisa, if you left off signatures of witnesses, halacha l'maisa, it is kosher l'chatchila. It is kosher l'chatchila. So I will say, so what do you see from here? So now remember, we're back to square one. Remember, what are you trying to figure out? We're trying to figure out over here whose opinion is reflected in our Mishnah. According to Rabbah, right? Because according to Rabbah, why do I need b'fai nechtam? Why do I need that? To attest to the Shema identity of the get. Now, the fact that I have to say b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam indicates that the shaliach has to attest to the lishma validity of the get, both that it was written lishma and signed lishma. So whose opinion is that? So again, it can't be Rabbi Meir, because all Rabbi Meir requires is chasima lishma. You don't need ksiva lishma. Can't be Rabbi Lazar, because what does Rabbi Lazar require? Ksiva lishma, and doesn't even seem to require midrabanan chasima. So whose opinion? Ella ve'al Rabbi Meir. To which you write, really it's Rabbi Meir. V'chilo boy Rabbi Meir ksiva lishma midaraisa midrabanan boy. And what you have to say is as follows. We'll say it's Rabbi Meir. I will just Rabbi Meir only requires chasima lishma, doesn't require ksiva lishma. You're right. But he does require ksiva lishma midrabanan. So we'll say the position of Rabbi Meir is the signing has to be lishma, that's da'araisa. The ksiva, the writing, has to be lishma, but that is only midrabanan. Midrabanan, after all, the Gemara says, really, v'hamar Rav Nachman, Omer Haya Rabbi Meir. Sorry. So the Ha'amar Rabbi Nachman, Omer Haya Rabbi Meir, Afilu Matzah Ba'ashpa. Right, Rabbi Meir said, even if you found, this is a classic you keep referencing over here, even if you found the get, right, written in the garbage dump, right, in other words, you find the get, that, right, Reuven finds the get that has the names of Reuven and Rachel in that get, right, the Chasma v'Nasnala, and you signed it, and you gave it to her, kosher. So I'll say, so again, it says it's kosher, but 1 second, there's no ksiva l'shma in that, right, not even midrabanan. V'chitema anan mida'araisa kamasin. Maybe you'll say again, this din is reflecting the din da'araisa. Ihachi omer hayi Rabbi Meir dvar Torah miboy. So we'll say if that's the case, then it should have introduced it as saying mida'araisa Rabbi Meir says that such a get is kosher, but midrabanan it's not. Therefore, I will say we're back to where we started, which is we do not know who the author of the Mishnah is. We are looking for the opinion that holds. We are looking for the opinion that holds the halacha l'maisa. Both ksiva and chasima have to be l'shon. I will say, just to be clear, this is only a din in Rabbah, right? Rabbah who holds that b'far nechtam is there to go ahead and to ascertain the lishma component of things. So halacha l'maisa, again, who is the opinion who requires both writing lishma and signing lishma? Ultimately, and I will say that still remains outstanding. And Amir Hashem to be continued. I'll just end off with a very quick vart from actually it's really tied into the beginning of today's daf, which is really yesterday's daf. The Gemara quoted the idea of Rabbi Meir, who is chayshina lemiuta. Right, Rabbi Meir is the opinion who is choshish for the miut, for the minority opinion. Right, that's Rabbi Meir. So I'll say that's Rabbi Meir throughout Shas, who is chayesh lemiuta. So I'll say there's a very beautiful idea by Rabbi Nachman in Likutei Torah. So Rabbi Nachman quotes the pasuk from Tehillim in Perek Lamed Daled pasuk Yud, Va'od ma'at ve'in rasha. Va'od ma'at ve'in rasha. So we'll say now the literal text of the pasuk is Va'od ma'at, just wait a little bit longer, ve'in rasha, and ultimately again evil will disappear from the world. So David HaMelech is saying, just hold on, Gula is going to come. Rabbi Nachman says no, the pasuk means something else. Many times in life we make some really bad mistakes. And as a result of our mistakes, we often think that we totally remove any vestige of holiness and spirituality within ourselves. And especially sometimes we make big life mistakes and say, you know what, I'm a goner. I'm done. There is no rebounding. There is no redemption from this terrible life and this step. The Rebbe says, what does David HaMelech say? Va'od ma'at. There's always a little bit left inside of you. Ve'ein rasha. And it's not corrupted. No matter how bad our mistakes we make in life, is you can never fully decimate the spiritual self. No matter how many missteps a person makes in life, there's always the little bit of goodness, like the pach shemen, the little cruse of oil, like from the Hanukkah story, that always remains pure and untainted. But od ma'at, there's always a ma'at, ultimately in Russia that's not corrupted. And the Rebbe says, that's what it means when we pass like Rabbi Meir, who is chayish lemiuta. Right? What does it mean? Rabbi Meir is always choshesh. She always says, find the minority, find the miut, find the little bit inside of you that no matter how bad your life mistakes may be, there's always that little piece, there's always that little oil, there's always that little spark, there's always that od ma'at, that no matter how badly you've messed up in life, is still pure, is still there. And I will say, it's that od ma'at, it's that little bit, that little uncorrupted bit. I will say, that's the little bit of oil, that's the little bit of the spark that allows us to reignite our personalistic flame of holiness. Well, so that's all we have for today. Shkoyach everyone, and good Shabbos.